What's up, guys? My name's Sean, and we're back again with another episode of the NFT Talks podcast. So today's guest is an award-winning artist based out in Dallas. He's built a name for himself on the Foundation marketplace. He's actually number one rated. He's sold the most NFTs on Foundation, which is incredible. The interesting thing that he's done too also is he's combined his actual original pieces of art where they're abstract paintings, and he's combined the technology with augmented reality. So he's got an app, and he's doing loads of different things. So if you're interested in NFTs, if you're a creator, if you're an artist, if you want to find out how to build a name for yourself on Foundation or any other marketplace, or if you're a collector and you're interested in collecting his work, this is one not to be missed. He's such a cool guy. So I hope you enjoy this one. So make sure you subscribe and leave your comments down below, and share the podcast to anyone else that you feel will be interested, and let's help build this community. So welcome back to the NFT podcast. I am here with Allo, who is an NFT curator, an artist, a painter. But the amazing thing that he does is he collaborates his paintings with AR, which I was very interested in. So be prepared for lots of gems in this podcast. Introduce yourself, just give yourself a bit of an introduction, a bit of background about yourself, and then we can get going into the art and what you're doing in the space.
Yep. So like Sean said, my name is Manuel Herrera, but I've been creating for years and years and years under the name Allo. Mm-hmm. I used to be a graffiti artist, and I thought it was some pretty cool shit to say, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, because the definition of Allo is a prefix that means to be different. So like you allocate money, you do different things with it. Mm-hmm. So I always thought it was dope to say that from the beginning I was going to be different, and that kind of birthed the name Allo. Okay. I've just been creating under that name. Started off as a painter, and just have been creating it. Then, I was in advertising for 15, 20 years, and was always in the digital space. Never was in print or traditional or television. It was always digital, whether it was social, apps, site design, anything interactive. And so I was always playing with augmented reality. And what I told people is I was doing 3D stuff, video stuff 10, 15 years ago with big brands like Pizza Hut, and no one was ready for it. The technology wasn't there. People didn't know how to use it. It was still a little too techy. QR codes were really, really techy back then too. But, fast forward, COVID taught us a lot of things. One, we weren't prepared for a lot of stuff, right? But it also taught us a lot of good things too. Like you can't go to a restaurant now and not see a QR code and not see someone not know how to use it, which is interesting. So it was a culmination of a lot of things happening at the right time. And what I tell people, it's the stuff that I'm doing with augmented reality in my paintings and artwork is so like the minimum of what AR can do, the technology. And it's just flooring people. And it's so funny. I'm like, just wait to these next rounds when we're like other artists start to go, oh, you know what? Digital art is a new medium. NFT is a new medium. It's going to explode. And I'm just glad to be at the forefront of some of that.
Yeah, I've had some amazing conversation with other guests about AR, and that seems to be the craze at the moment, with the AR, VR, the spectacles, and basically evolving things like art and clothing and whatnot. Like at the moment, art's got one use case: you buy it, you look at it, you hang it up, and that's it pretty much. When you buy a painting, but now with the introducing AR, you're gonna be able to do a lot more things with it. You're gonna be able to engage and whatnot. So I'm excited, and it's funny that you say that you're very basic technology you're using at the moment with the AR with what you're doing, because it's a simple case of you've got the picture and then you put your phone over and then it shows the picture, the real picture, I would say. I mean, explain that side of it, because I mean, I'll make sure I get a few images up when I actually talk about it, but explain how that works, how your art works, and why you do it.
Yeah, so the series that I'm working on right now is called Masters. Masters, MSTRS. I took out all the vowels because the idea was to simplify some of these iconic images that we have stored in our brains. Our brains are really good data collectors, and we store millions and millions and millions and millions of images. Everything from Marilyn Monroe with her dress going up over the, the great, all the way to Muhammad Ali when he's just got that fist pump,
yeah,
and he's
yeah,
just
yeah,
standing
yeah.
over his that fresh knockout. We have all of these images, and what I wanted to do all the way through, like paintings from Frida Kahlo to Van Gogh to you name it, to even modern artists like Cause. We have all these iconic images, and I really wanted. I'm a minimalist artist, and I wanted to simplify all of those pieces. And so what I started doing was printing them out, drawing my favorite lines, and then they made all these really cool panels, these really cool triangles. And then what I did was I zoomed into that little panel that it made, picked my favorite color from that piece. And what I started to notice in that study was like these things, these pieces, these images that we have are so iconic that they still register and they still hold a lot of value. And even sometimes to me are more powerful than the actual piece minimalized in this new style. So not being one to shy away from my inspiration, because we're all inspired by stuff.
Yeah.
It's impossible to not be inspired. I developed an app along with a friend of mine, and you'll hold up the app as an authentication tool and kind of a fun way to interact with the piece.
Yeah.
It'll show you the inspiration of the real image in real time.
Okay, so basically your art is the actual art that people buy, but you're basically almost creating a backstory and saying this is where the inspiration came from, and you can see that through the app.
That's exactly right.
Okay, that's real interesting. I like my impression. I thought that actually that looking on it, I didn't get that impression, but that's why it's good to speak, because that makes sense now. So you've gone. I mean, is it a complicated app? I mean, you've gone for the trouble of making an app. So do people have to download the app when they buy your work? I mean, how does it work?
Yeah, so it's funny when you talk about complications. So when we were developing the app initially, this was 3-4 years ago, just for this specific piece, we had to take pieces of mine and shoot them at different angles, at different light settings, and different tones of, like, warm light versus bright light or cool lighting. And we were taking 20-30 pictures of every piece that we made. And I'll bring a piece over here in a shot. I'll run and grab one in a second.
Okay.
But just so that the app would recognize it, right? So we spent maybe a year doing that, getting that first piece to work. And then Apple drops this new AR kit, like, a year and a half into this app development. So we scratch it all, rebuilt the whole app in like 2 months. And it's just genius, man. It registers at most light settings, at any angle, and it's actually more powerful than the app that we originally created.
How does it actually pick it up then? How does it pick up how do you explain to me, without getting too techie, but just explain to me, how does it work? How does it connect to the picture? Is it a QR code there hidden there, or is it down to the color? Or
so it's an actual app. So on all of our business cards, I'll have to pull one of those up too. It has a QR code in the back, and it'll take you to the app store where you can download it. But what I tell my mom is it's like a Snapchat filter on crack. Right. Okay. So Snapchat, what it does is it looks for your eyes, looks for your chin, and it follows you around. So that's why when you turn your head, it'll start to break, or it'll start to, those lenses will start to break. Ours is on crack because it looks in the world when you have our app up for all of these triangles, for every single one of these pieces that we made in that particular order, in that particular color pattern. So it's constantly scanning the world for these things. And once it recognizes all of those triangles, it's like magic, right? It all comes together, and then it'll say, oh, I recognize that piece. This artist wants to show you the inspiration behind that work. And I originally also did it because, we think about Frida Kahlo, we think about Van Gogh, we think about Matisse, and we think about all of these like real famous artists that we have. And, they have like 1 or 2 bangers that we all know, the Mona Lisa. We get it. And I originally didn't paint any bangers. It was all B-side. It was all the B-track side.
It's funny that you refer to them as bangers, like that.
That's right. Yeah. So everyone knows that every artist bangers, but like I wanted to get hype around some of those tracks maybe that they hadn't seen before, some of those pieces they hadn't seen before.
Mixtapes.
So I painted those first, right? Like I painted Degas like aside from his ballerinas, just so that you could. Like I wanted it to be an experience, and like, I didn't realize he had different series of paintings. Like I just always thought, Picasso did a certain style, and so that was kind of the goal of it, was just to expand people's libraries of images that they had as well.
Okay, so you're recreating people's other artists' work. So are you doing any of your own paintings at the moment, or is it just like all recreations?
It's right now. It's all, we call them refreshed. We're refreshing old pieces.
Okay.
I'll go grab one here.
Okay, go grab them, man. Go grab them.
So I'm going to lean this one against this older piece that we have here.
Okay. And how does that work for, I mean, I guess the question is going to be like, how does that work for rights and all that stuff, and how does it work?
You know what? So my brother's an attorney, and we've kind of talked back and forth. I mean, it's not considered fan art. They're recreations of art. We're allowed to, be inspired. And so this is by no means a Van Gogh behind me, right?
Yeah.
But I do tell my collectors, like, hey, you could get a Van Gogh in your house for a fraction of the price that maybe you could pick one up at Sotheby's or Christie's or something, and put it in your living room. But here, I'll fire up the app too. Maybe we can get this on camera.
Yeah, man, we
Get a
love to see
live
that.
demo going.
So it's
So this is
really
the app right here. It's called Masters.
okay. All right. Yeah, I see it.
Right. So you click this little camera button, and then you hold it up to the piece. Sometimes a little magic shake. Wow. There it goes.
Okay.
You can see that.
Like that's
But
just
it's in real time. It's flipping it to that Van Gogh piece.
yeah, I love that. I like it's just cool. Like I think that just having that in your home or anywhere, just to be able to have that. Like you got one piece and then you put your phone up there. And is there any way, if future wise, is that you won't need the app? I mean, how's that going to work? Because if you're going to show it off to somebody and your friend if you want to see a piece of art that's hung up in a potentially in a restaurant, is that something you're thinking about?
So yes, so there's two different things that are going to happen, I think. One is we are in the process of making it a web app, so there's no app download needed, and that's really just to get away from me having to dual manage an app store app, something for Google and something for Android. It's like it's a lot to keep up at the same time. And right now we're only an iPhone app, and so I get a lot of flack for that a little bit. But if we go to a web app, it really would just be something you just go to a site or URL, and then augmented reality can work that way once you allow the camera, when you go to like a certain link or something. But the second thing that I wanted to say was I think augmented reality is going to get a lot more integrated into our fabric of how we experience things.
Yeah.
And I think like even you're experiencing it with QR codes. Like it used to be when I was playing 10, 15 years ago, you had to download an app to scan QR codes. Now it's built right into the camera.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to happen is everything that we have will start to listen and start to react, and you'll have settings to do that, and there'll be plugins so that you won't have to download as much. There'll be less roadblocks to get into some of this VR, AR stuff that's going to happen in the future.
Mm-hmm. I feel that NFTs at this point is the perfect partner for AR or VR. Like I mean, obviously, like you said, it's been around for a good while now, but it hasn't really found its purpose to connect for people to use. But I feel that at this point, with digital art on the rise, and obviously the way people are using the crypto space and NFTs, this is the perfect match. I mean, I don't know if you feel the same. I mean, you probably have a better outlook than me.
You hit the nail right on the head. I think I think we're in the dial-up stage of NFTs right now. If you want to compare it to something, it's digital art. It's a new medium. And while you can say there's interactive, like, Felipe Pantone does a really great job of doing tangible interactive art where you can spin his work. I think what's going to be cool about this new digital medium is right now it's like it's images and it's video, right? It's so flat and it's digital. So it's begging to be interactive. And I think you're starting to see it too with these NFTs and these experiments that some artists are doing where they change over time, or they change based on the cryptocurrency value that it's being sold at. So you're seeing this like interactiveness where there's NFTs that I think that are just degrading over time and will eventually just dissolve into nothing. And it's like, to me, that's really intriguing where you're starting to make, I mean, it's a new medium, and we're not touching anything programmatically right now. It's just so flat. It's video and JPEGs or PNGs or GIFs, right? I can't wait till they allow for more file types that will, in a sense, bring back Flash, right? Flash went away. It was dope when it was here, right? You're like, oh my God, this site can interact with my mouse and it can do all of these really cool things, and it just kind of knows and listens. And HTML5 kind of came and did that, but I think NFTs will be the same way, where they'll start to be a lot more interactive.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like music, art hasn't moved forward with technology and fashion also. We've had one use case. We wear it, you hang up the piece of art on your wall, you listen to music, and that's it. But now with the technology and the way people are using it, you're going to be able to gamify and offer a lot more engagement with these with these mediums. And obviously, I was reading an article about dynamic NFTs, which I really think is interesting. I mean, I don't know if you looked into that. Is so obviously, imagine a piece of art, even your art, if it's related to some, maybe say it's a memorabilia for a football game, and it changes when it changed to another piece of art when something happens, if they win the World Cup or if they win the Euros and whatnot. Like, that's what I'm really excited about. I mean, is that something you started to think about, or?
Oh, absolutely. My mind is always forward thinking. Like, what can we do next? Like, it's not so much one-upmanship, but it's like, how do we push? How do we make something even more creative? And I think that's what artists do. You give them a medium, and they do something you don't think that would have come from that. It's creating something from nothing, right? But that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Just things that are happening in the world, influencing the art that's in your home. It's going to be really neat. I think the other thing that I'm enjoying seeing are the digital displays that are happening. And I tell my wife all the time, like, wouldn't it be dope if like we had a house party and we invited all our friends over, and without taking all of this tangible art that we have in our house right now off, they're just all screens I could go through and swipe through and just create a mood for the house that's like different than I've ever done before. And I think that's going to be really cool too.
Yeah, I definitely agree with. What's your thoughts on like okay, so galleries, virtual galleries then, and stuff like that? I mean, what is that something you've looked into? I mean, because at the moment you're still with the like a hybrid, because you still create the physical art. Do you just do digital? Do you sell digital items too, without the physical?
Do both, yeah.
Do both.
I do
Okay,
both,
okay,
and I particularly like when people couple or collectors couple,
yeah.
the tangible piece with the NFT. It's kind of a cool way to digitally sign something or make it authentic as well.
Did you have a following? You've been doing art for how long now? And did you have a following before you went to NFTs?
So I was in advertising for like 15, 20 years, doing all digital, every social media platform. And I'll be honest, like, wasn't a big fan of social media. Just it consumes so much of our lives, and I felt like it's come back and consumed too much of my life right now. Just because of how the communities work within NFTs. I have a lot more social channels and apps on my phone now that I have in the past. But to answer your question, I deleted essentially all of my followings, and so I, in some ways, kind of regret that, because so much of what NFT prices go for or go on are based on clout and how much followers you have in following. So while this series, I haven't been painting long. I think this series has only been around for 3 years. And I had a following of about 1,500, and then NFTs just helped me get to almost 4,000 now, and the growth isn't stopping.
That's crazy, that is, because the fact that, because what I find out with a lot of creators is that they have following, they either have following or they don't have following, and they contact me and they ask, like, how do I sell my NFT? The question may be, how do I convert my current audience to buy an NFT from me if they're not into crypto already? The fact that you've said that you had an audience, but your audience developed when you went into the NFT space. How did you do that? What actually did you take? Like,
so I won't say I was an early adopter to NFTs by any means. In fact, I had friends reaching out to me a year ago to 6 months ago talking about NFTs and crypto, and I just wasn't in it. I was
like, nah, don't worry.
I was like, I don't get into it. It's a little too geeky for me. And they're like, dude, but you're doing like augmented reality, digital. You're like, you were made for this moment. And then I'm driving home from out of town with my wife and a friend of mine. His name's Jack Butcher, Visualize Value. He's messaging me. He's like, dude, I just sold a piece, like my first video, and it went for 25 ETH or something like that. And I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy, Crazy. So my wife just sees like the car go from like the normal like cruising speed to where like we're hauling ass to get home. She was right when I hit that driveway. She's like, I'm not gonna see you on my. I'm like, nah. So I buried myself for like 2 weeks. And just hit foundation really, really hard. Got an invite pretty early on when the bubble was kind of coming down, and we've kind of leveled out a little bit, I think, NFT sales wise. But from there, I couldn't mint enough. It was so strange. People, and I don't think it was mostly following from Instagram, or I didn't have Twitter at all. It was a combination of both. Because my collectors enjoyed the digital part of it, I think they were also crypto holders, and that kind of helped me. Versus had I only been a traditional artist, and I've seen friends of mine who have tried to get on foundation, they struggle a little bit because some of the collectors that they have, or most of the collectors that they have, and some of the ones that I have
Mhm.
are more traditional. They don't hold on to crypto.
Yeah.
And so that's a big speed bump. So most of those sales came from foundation.
Why foundation? Like I'm getting that feel from a lot of artists that come into the space, NFT artists. Foundation is kind of the go-to. Because there's OpenSea, there's Rarible, there's Marketplace, there's lots of different ones, super rare. Why foundation? Or would you run all of them? I mean, what was your approach when you first come to the space and looking at a marketplace?
So my approach was, I didn't know a lot when I was coming in, and like everyone else, I Google searched top NFT marketplaces.
Okay.
Foundation and Super Rare being some of the rarest to get into because they were by invite only. And when I started to look at the sites, this is kind of just selfishness, but I like and favor a very clean, minimalist, modern design.
Yeah.
And what I found with Rarible and even OpenSea at the time, they've done a better job of like cleaning their stuff up, is it was a little fussy and it felt a little like I didn't know where to focus. And me as a designer, I would go to those companies and say, hey, let's redesign at least the homepage. Let's get some, let's get it right. But ultimately why I chose Foundation was A, the exclusivity, but B, I felt like they did a good job of helping me, what I consider myself as a David going against some Goliaths. So if you
Okay.
look at Foundation, and this is what they did, I think, right. And I think they've kind of changed the formula, and it's kind of hurt lesser artists now.
Okay.
But everyone had their claim to every collector equally at the same time. So for instance, their homepage used to be whoever got a bid, the shot clock started at 24 hours, right, for bidding to end, that auction to end. And everyone got their spot on that front page on one of the biggest sites in the world at the time.
Yeah.
Regardless of how much clout you had, whether you were verified on Twitter or Instagram or not, I was showing next to the Nyan cat, and I took screen caps. Like, when am I ever going to get to be on this platform and any gallery setting and be next to these huge Goliath artists? And the answer is never, and never again will it happen, because they've now changed their homepage where they're only featuring all of the Goliaths. There's no more Davids fighting to go against it. So that's why I picked Foundation, because once you started that bid, and I set my reserves really low so I would get a lot of bids. And once they got to that homepage, people appreciated the art, and the bids just went up and up and up and up. And there was a lot of bidding wars back then. So that's how I got a lot of
It's funny that you say back then. That would only been a couple of months ago now.
Dude,
in the NFT space, it seems like you're in years.
That's exactly. It feels like light years right now. That's insane. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, what was your first sale? I mean, what was like? Tell me a bit about that. Like, what was your first sale? How did you feel? Like, yeah, like
my first sale. So a little bit of backstory on that one. The very first piece I minted was Mona Lisa, and against everything that I just told you like 30 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago, I didn't want to do bangers, but I was reluctant to paint that piece. I wasn't a big fan of the Mona Lisa at all. Like it's what, 10 by 11. It sits so far back.
It gets used as an example to explain NFTs, doesn't it? Like it's the one of the, if you have a Mona Lisa, blah blah blah, and so on. That's
it's an icon on every app, every site on the world. It's so beat to death, right? And I didn't want to paint the piece, but I got commissioned the piece a few years ago. Ended up painting it, ended up falling in love with it because I just didn't realize how many teals and purples and oranges were in that actual piece. I just thought it was this old beat down green and brown piece. That's not the case. So my refreshed version of it made me love it and made it a bucket list item. Now I have to go see the actual Mona Lisa. So when I was minting, I just wanted something low hanging fruit. I know that the crowd would appreciate. It's a Mona Lisa. Right? We all know it. It's come out, swing in. Let's just get an easy home run, easy base hit. So I minted it, and literally, I think seconds later, where everyone was like struggling to get bids, seconds later, I got a bid.
Wow.
And I put the reserve up for .1552 ETH, which is my grandmother's favorite number. I think she had about 40 grandkids, but she always said she had 1,552 of them.
Yeah.
It was just her favorite number, right? Like anything was that number. So I was like, you know what? A little bit of lady luck wouldn't hurt. And she looked down from the heavens and she was like, you know what? Here's a bid for that. And crazy. I think it sold for like 1.5 ETH, which was back then, which is, even now, it's just crazy to think that someone would, I'm always humbled when people spend that kind of money on my
How
physical
much is
art.
that? How much is that? Around like three and a half, right? I'm guessing. Like,
Yeah, I think Ethereum was at a 2, so yeah, like three and a half
yeah,
thousand
man.
dollars.
That's, yeah, okay, cool. So that one
Yeah.
for your first sale, you like it's yeah. I mean, have you ever sold art for that much before?
Physical pieces, yes. Like
Okay, all
my
right.
pieces range from about $2,000 to $5,000.
Okay, all right.
So like I put the reserve for like I think $300 at the time. I'm like, you know what? It's
Mm,
digital art, and yeah, I'm only making one of ones, but it's a lot easier for me to create. These take months to paint, because
okay.
I gotta wait for like triangles to dry, and it takes a
Mhm.
long time. But these things are the NFTs. I can render one out in like 3-4 hours and
Yeah.
make it nice and neat. So.
Okay, so it's not much more time consuming, much more efficient, and you're almost selling it for the same price that you're selling your original pieces for. So
That's right.
what's the next step from there then?
That next thing was, like everyone else, I was very hesitant to invest a lot into NFTs. I just didn't know, and
Yeah.
it's really expensive to start. And even back then, the gas prices were astronomical. They were like 150 to mint, 150 to list.
Mm,
I remember minting stuff for like $200 at one point, $250, and I'm like, this is crazy. Like this is a barrier.
yeah.
Uh, and so once I made that first sale, I had fun money. I took out the money I invested, minted a couple more pieces, and those sold right away. And I couldn't mint fast enough. Like I would have 5, 6 auctions going at the same time, and I felt maybe a little spamish. But it's
Yeah.
like, strike while the iron's hot. I'm an artist,
Yeah, of
and
course.
if I had all of this 4 years of body of work, why not start to convert them to NFTs? And I reached out to a bunch of existing clients to see if they wanted to couple up their piece with an NFT for a fraction of the price, because I would just transfer it to them.
Mhm.
A lot of them passed, so I just minted and minted and minted, and I'm about to hit. I think I'm number one on Foundation for all time NFTs sold, number of
Wow.
NFTs, and number of collectors. Um, at NFT, and I'm about to hit 100. I think I have 98 NFT sales right now.
Oh, congratulations, man. Like
Yeah,
you're not messing around, seriously.
a friend of mine from India, he posted, he was like, so happy to be in the top 100 with some of my favorite artists, and he tagged me in it. I was number one. I'm like, this is bullshit. This dude's totally like photoshopping my name into stuff. No, but I went to Foundation, hit those filters, and I'm like, oh my God, we're number one on a lot of lists. This is crazy.
I love the fact that you're not even paying attention to that. Like you're just doing the work, you're grinding, you're getting your work out there. You're not even paying attention to
I
where you are.
I famously don't look back. I tell people all the time, you never see an Olympic runner looking back. This kind of
True.
topical is the amount of times it takes you to look back is that's it, man. You lost time. You lost momentum.
What have you had? Tell me, have you got any horror stories? I mean, like this be real. Like I always like to speak to, especially when I speak to creators, like especially coming into the space. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. Let's face it. Whether you know what you're doing or not. So, is there anything horror stories or anything that hasn't worked for you that you think like you'd like to share story wise?
You know what? I've been pretty fortunate to not experience too many horror stories.
Mm,
I will say that like it's just so interesting that what some pieces will go to, what they'll sell for and what they won't. And
yeah,
what I caution artists that come into the space is I caution them not to expect too much, right? Like,
yeah,
money's money, right? Like Ethereum is Ethereum. And, if you don't have to have something that sells for 10 ETH, 5 ETH. I mean, look at my sales on my foundation. You can go to cryptoart.io and see what I've made. But, I've always felt like for what I make, I'm happy with what I make. And so that's kind of the big thing I caution everyone is there's all these expectations of becoming this crypto millionaire. And it's like, no, just it's another medium. Like I wouldn't expect to paint a new series and for them to come out at 2 to 5,000 a piece either. Like my
yeah.
pieces all started out about 5 to 800 and they slowly grew. So I feel like I have somewhat of a meteoric rise, but it's only because, it's just right timing.
Hmm. Okay, so what? So that's you would recommend for an artist not to have any expectations. What talk about the positive then?
NFTs are crazy. So I would say definitely pair with a marketplace that fits you, right? I
Yeah.
just opened up another shop called Radzooks on Wearable. That's just a bunch of like tchotchke collectibles because I think
Mm,
eventually NFTs are going to become like collectibles, things that like speak to us or things that define who we are because of the things that we have in our wallets. Just like I could open up your wallet and figure out a lot about you, right? Like your
yeah,
physical wallet in
yeah,
your
cool.
pocket. I think that we're going to have that same kind of thing, and you see that all the time, even with the collectibles like the Bored Ape Yacht Clubs and the crypto punks. Like people are buying things not because they're art, but because they speak to them and they describe a little bit of who they are. And I think that's going to be important both if you're an artist or if you're into making a collectible series or anything else. Just pick the right marketplace and just execute just perfectly your plan, and don't compromise. I think what NFTs have done is allowed artists to focus away from advertising and your work stuff and allow you to just make stuff just to make and just create, which is really awesome.
Do you collect any NFTs yourself then? Are you a collector yourself? Are you involved in any of the collections or anything you're interested in?
So I should be better. I have not collected as many NFTs as I've appreciated, right? Because I browse and look, I'm like, damn, that's dope. Like I want to get that one. What gives me more pleasure and is, and I wish Foundation would do a good job of this, is I like bringing other artists onto NFTs, answering all their questions, getting them onboarded to something, helping them like mint their first pieces. And even, well, I say even, sometimes, always, anyone that I bring on, I mint their first few pieces just to get them started, just without any
when you say you bring on, you're talking about anyone you invite. Is that right?
Invite. That's correct.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. And the last one, the last person I've invited, her name's Verily. She's if you go to my, I'll post about it maybe in my Instagram here in a second, just kind of boast about her. But, you know, like Foundation gives you invites for every few like milestones you hit, you know, your first bid, maybe your first purchase, you know, hitting 500 followers, 1,000 followers, whatever. I don't quite know why they give their invites out and how, but, you know, I will throw one up on Twitter sometimes, and found this artist. She's in Russia and she's just an incredible artist. She had like 300 followers and just brilliant work. And I don't really quite know why her followership wasn't incredible, because she's award winning and she has all of this badass work.
Yeah.
And I found her, I was like, you know what, out of all the people that like have hit me up, you're definitely getting an invite. I paid for her first mint, answered a bunch of questions, helped her kind of like, you know, strategy and some of the pieces maybe. And she's in 7 days, she's already got 4 sales and it's just on a rocket ship to like going up. So I'm just like, this is an awesome story. And no, it's just it's brilliant.
This is what I love about this space. Like the fact that you're like, this doesn't happen unless I don't see it in the real world. Is the space is very like it seems friendly, especially creators are helping creators. Like the fact that you just said, okay, you invited you not only invited her, you've showed her what to do, you've paid for her first mint. Like you don't have to do that. Let's just be clear. Like this is just something you're doing. I'm assuming because you want to, yeah.
I have good. I do it inside of the NFT space. I do it outside of the NFT. I enjoy helping and I enjoy the art. A friend of mine, Nautamel, he was just so persistent, and this was before he was invited to Foundation. He just kept hitting me up. So out of nowhere, just, you know, stranger hitting me up on Instagram. And I famously will talk to anyone. I'll chat everyone up on my Instagram, even if they're asking for, you know, they're shilling for an invite or something. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I don't have any or whatever. But he kept hitting me up and I really didn't have one. And I loved his work and I wish I had an invite for him. Ended up getting one by himself, but we became friends. And yeah, I meant to, he wanted me to bid on one of his pieces or something like that. And I'm like, no, I'd rather just invite you. Like, I'll invite you, I'll pay for your first mint, whatever. And we just become so good friends that I bought one of his pieces later on. I'm like, you know what, after he started blowing up, I spent the ETH and bought one of his pieces. And as soon as Foundation had that split where you can like start collabing, we have a collab piece. And so it's like, the community's been amazing.
Talk to me about that. How long has that been going on? Because I guess unless you're in Foundation, you don't really know about this, because I've only come across 1 or 2 marketplaces that offer this split, which I think is so important. I don't understand why every marketplace doesn't have that, because to be able to mint a piece of work and collaborate with an artist, because it happens a lot in this space. And then to have that, obviously, so talk to me about the split. How does that work?
Yeah, so as you're minting a piece, right before you set the pricing, before you list it, I think Foundation allows you to do up to 4. So you can mint to a wallet for like a charity, or you could split it between maybe an audio person or another creator. I mean, it doesn't designate what you have to split it for. You could just split up to 4 or 5, I forget.
Yeah.
But it was really nice. You know, I punched in Automel's address, and we were able to split 50-50, and it's available on Foundation right now.
Is that a continuous split, or can you set it to be like once you off the first sale, you get split, and then if you put any royalties in there, only one person gets a royalty? I mean, has it got that flexibility in it?
Oh, you know what? That's a great question. I would assume, and don't quote me on this, but it's
Yeah.
probably for the royalties as well. Yeah, in perpetuity. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
15%.
What's your thoughts on talking about royalties? Is from like if you mint on Foundation, if somebody wants to sell that, buys that piece and wants to sell it on OpenSea, then your royalties drop off. That's right, is it? Is that correct?
You know what? I don't know about that.
Doesn't I mean, far as my knowledge is that's something that's in the space that still needs to be looked at. Like, so if somebody wants to sell it on another platform, you won't. If you've minted it on Foundation, you won't receive the royalties. Now, if that isn't true, exactly for Foundations, don't crucify me, guys. But I'm sure that is the case. That's something that is being looked at. But the fact that you don't even thinking about that.
You know what? I like I said, I don't look at the ETH that I've collected. I don't look at any of that stuff. I just kind of like to just keep going. And
Yeah.
as long as there's water in that well where I can continue to mint and continue to help others mint, then I'm going to continue to do that. And that's just kind of my MO.
All right. So let's move before talking about NFTs in general in regards to, okay, NFTs is art, but it's a lot more than that. I mean, where do you see things moving forward for NFTs in the future? Like, what other industries are, if you are excited about, whether it's fashion, gaming, tickets, music?
You know, it's crazy to me how far, you know, you mentioned it at the very, very top of this podcast. It's like, you know, NFT isn't just art. It's a medium. It's a sign. It's a form of like signature or certificate of authenticity. And so that, like, the ability to own a moment in the NBA or to get tangible assets out of something, you know, like you know, tickets or jerseys to an event. All of that stuff can be tied in because these are essentially just digital contracts. They're not. It's not really about the art or the video that we're, you know, making famous on the internet as far as art goes. I truly, like, I can't say this enough. We are at the very dial-up stage, and this is the wild west. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy to think of the possibilities. And I get asked this question all the time. Where are we going to be in 5 years? I'm like, dude, if I knew where we were going to be in 5 years, I'd be doing it right now and be blowing people's minds. And I think everyone's trying to figure out what's going to happen in 5 years.
My thing is, I feel that you just got to, instead of thinking about where we're going to be in 5 years, just think about what you're interested in and try and do it as an NFT. So whether that's would be houses, you're interested in cars, you're interested in trains, it's just communities. The way I look at it is look at these small communities, right. And then you can capitalize off that. And you could be you could potentially be the first or be one of the main guys within that space. Like, I'm heavily into my fitness. Fitness hasn't even been looked at in the NFT space, but in the real world, it's massive. So like there's opportunity there. Like fashion, I'm looking forward to see what people do with fashion, especially with the rise of digital fashion. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I mean, are you a fan or you're not a fan of digital fashion?
Absolutely a fan of all of these different mediums, you know. I was looking at an article the other day with augmented reality clothes, where
I seen it. But that's
a video where it's like shooting people and like just walking around. It's like the coat or the sneakers, like all of that's going to happen. And I think we're all going to buy stuff like that. My first sale on Radzooks on Wearable is an old Power Glove that we have, and it just rotates. And it's like, I think people are going to want to buy these Nintendo Power Gloves and in this digital world, be able to wear them. The other thing that I was reading, which I thought was very interesting to think about, is how digital the future is going to be, and how you know, this massive land grab that's happening too, where you can buy land in digital space.
Yeah.
And it sounds so surreal to us, but when you think about what our kiddos are doing, like all my nieces and nephews, they're already in these digital worlds where they have friends and they're building their own houses. So they're going to want grown-up versions of that when they get older. And we're talking about 10 years from now. Can you imagine the types of things that they're going to be doing? It's not going to be these like crude blocks, and maybe it is, right? But there's also going to be other options for them to just inundate and surround themselves in these digital worlds. And a lot of that's right about
it's important to think it's not about us. Like, we've got to think, like you just pointed on, It's about the younger generation. They're already doing it. They already live in these worlds. I mean,
Right.
I spent hours and hours and hours playing games when I was younger, hours, and now the younger generation, you have to play games, have an ecosystem within inside that. When they're finished playing with that game, they're going to have they could potentially have a fortune. They're going to sell it, and then they just go, okay, I'm going to go play another game. I'm not going to play games anymore. But that time is going to be invested, and it could potentially make a living. I mean, that's what it is. And
it sounds wild, but I was talking to my wife. I'm like, I think I'm going to buy some digital land. She's like, why would you waste your money on that? I'm like, you have no idea. In 10 years, that land, anything that you're building and cultivating right now is going to pay off in 5-10 years.
My argument to that is, if anyone says, why would you buy virtual land? I say, well, does websites, the hosting, does it exist? You're buying a space online to host, and it's no different. You're just buying, if you go wherever the attention is, it's going to be a value, and soon the attention is going to be in the metaverse. So
that's right. We're at our age, we missed that whole being a kindergartner or a child working with math problems in these digital environments that they are. Like, just look at what they're doing on their iPads, and it's wild to think that they're living life in these digital spaces. They have their friends, they're chatting, and it's all going to be brought to you by NFTs. They're going to collect their wallets as soon as they have them to those worlds, and they're going to start buying things. And there's a lot of consumerism that's going to happen, and a lot of things and infrastructure that needs to be built so that they can be able to do that. And I think we're at the forefront of it. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think the mass adoption is going to happen when it will happen. I do believe is these big brands, these big corporations are probably already planning. Let's face it, they're already planning. They're already moving. They're just biding their time. They're going to step into the space.
They'd be smart to be planning.
and then everybody's going to have no choice to be a part of it. They'll be a part of it and they won't even know. So like.
It's pros and cons, right? A little mini squints and just like kind of a little bit of pain in my heart when you start talking about corporate and.
Well, this is big. Come on, let's face it. This is what's going to happen.
It's going to happen
to a certain extent, but this is why it's such a great opportunity with people like yourself, myself, doing things in this space to be the people that are the creators, to obviously be at the forefront, because people like yourself, and myself. The corporate business will come into the space and we're contacting us, we'll be contacting you to get some kind of knowledge. So you need to get in it early. Like, so guys, so if you're listening and you're hesitating, if you're creative, like, this is your time. It's that I can't stress enough. Like, it's a creator's world.
If you're a developer, what I think is fascinating with NFTs is, like, you don't have to be an artist to create art. I'm seeing all this wonderful stuff that developers are. I'm like, I would have never seen it, and they would have never had that medium to sell and to like make a livelihood off of this, some of their stuff that they're super creative at. And it's so great.
Like, I mean, you're touching on the developer side too, man. Like, within the smart contracts and whatnot, like, not everybody knows it's I think code is going to be a standard thing in the future.
Well, and you talked about it too. There's fashion, there's sport, there's exercise. All of this is going to be NFT. There's going to be subscription models and all kinds of things that just don't exist right now. And it's gonna be fruitful for anyone who's investing right now into it.
So what's next? What future wise? What does the future hold for you? What are you planning to do? What kind of things with your with your art? Oh, you haven't thought about
that. I've been pretty fortunate. I have a lot of requests for a lot of not just collaborations but just projects. And in the near future, I'd like to get onto different marketplaces. I think I have a drop in October coming with crypto.com.
Okay.
It's going to be, at least 5 pieces with a really cool, with a huge kind of a giveaway or kind of like something they're doing. I think they're going to be giving away some stuff or adding a lot of bonuses to buying NFT through them. So I have a lot of these things that are happening. I'm going to get onto new marketplaces. I'd also like to experiment with like creating some. I have a project that I want to start working on with some kind of collectible, not too dissimilar from like CryptoPunks or something. Just making something that's really, really fun. I'm working with another friend of mine to enhance the experience of NFTs. Because NFT is just like it's proof of purchase. It's on the blockchain. And so what do you do with that? To your point earlier, like, cool, I just have a piece of art, I hung it on my wall, like, awesome, I have a piece of art. But just doing like once you have that proof of purchase, once you have that NFT of some famous artist, whatever, like what else tangible things can you do with it? What can you do? And I know I'm being a little cryptic because we're still working on this project, but it's going to be really fun just to take NFTs to that next level. And how do you unlock and do more and do stuff that's, tangible? And that's what I'm really, really interested in. And then lastly, like I'm going to continue to push. You mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
If you're passionate about a project. It doesn't matter if you're an artist or not, just find a way to like convert it to an NFT, but then always try to, like do it one up, just like kind of like figure out what you could do to plus up any of these like passion projects that you have. So I'll continue to push with AR and VR and see what we can do, like playing with the Oculus and doing all kinds of fun stuff with it.
Okay, well, I love that. Like I said, we're short for time, but we're going to wrap it up. Thank you for your time today. Obviously, we'll stay connected. And where can people reach out to you?
Yeah, you can hit me up on allo.art. If you go there, you can see anything from where I'm minting things to probably what's going to be happening, shows that I'm popping up on, whether they're NFT or physical now, which is pretty fun.
Yeah. Okay, cool. No problem. Well, I'll make sure I'll put the links below. Thank everyone for listening. Everyone stay listening and stay blessed.